All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. So, today's guest is a good friend of mine and one of the world's top experts when it comes to creating digital products that people actually want to use. He had the Best Mobile App Developers Award in LA. He's one of the top 100 companies on Clutch. He's got the Forbes Business Award. He's got the top creative and design agencies in California. So I obviously am biased because he's a friend, but at the same time, so does many other people think this guy's a wizard. We're going to talk about what it means to live in a digital world and how to maximize your digital usage, so to speak, and use that to take your business beyond seven figures and so forth. So, without further ado, David Barlev, CEO of Goji Labs. Welcome to the show, brother.
Charlie, thanks for having me, man.
You are very welcome, man. It's an honor. And I meant every word. The work that you do, it doesn't take very much for somebody to look at the work that you do. So you got in this business, what, in 2014? So where's things changed, like from 2014 to now? Like how's that landscape sort of changed?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, yeah, we've been at Goji, we've been building products for about 10 years now. Our core mission is really to help founders and businesses get to market and then scale from there, leveraging digital transformation. Right. So, maybe to elaborate or give a couple of examples, you know, app development, product development used to be really an engineering thing, right? So, it's really about how to create systems that'll scale, that will perform, that will put significant capabilities in our end users' hands. And over time, we see that it's the form that is taking precedence. And so our users would often gravitate towards a smaller scope of a platform, but the experience has to be excellent. And we notice this a lot when we bring new products to market, is that our core focus is on actually, it's fine as we launch a new initiative or a new product for it to do actually as little as possible, but the experience has to be one that users will gravitate towards and will want to keep picking up, because that ultimately becomes the hook. And we see that turn, I think, over the last maybe 10 or 15 years as far as digital innovation is concerned.
And when we talk digital, we only talking mobile apps, or are we talking about everything across the board, websites and apps and anything else?
Basically, anything digital that users might interface with, right? It can even be hardware products that are oftentimes are always powered by software to a certain extent. You'll
Yeah.
see the devices that people make.
I know you work with a lot of real big company. How does this apply to small business? Is there a world where digital innovation is important for somebody who might be doing, say, seven figures a year?
So we work in basically, I would say, three major streams. The first is we help what you might call SMBs or sometimes founders get a product out to market that'll help them scale, right? And so we build that go to market initiatives that'll help us, for businesses, sometimes reduce overhead, capture additional revenue, create a stronger relationship with their customers. No matter what, just get it to market. There's like this famous
Yeah.
Reid Hoffman quote that said, "If you're not embarrassed by your first product that you bring to market, you launched too late."
Hmm.
Right? And I would say that to a certain extent, that still holds up. That's still a part of the philosophy. But now, because because of the standards, user experience and user interface, the boundary has been pushed forward so much. And because we've seen a commensurate reduction in people's level of attention, it's not enough to just get a product out there that's small. It has to be really smooth, really crisp, and the user journeys have to be such that you create an emotional connection with your users the first time you interact with them.
So nowadays, especially with all the AI tools and GPTs and everything that has come out there, nowadays it's simple for anybody off the street. There's all this stuff across the board. So why would I choose to have somebody do this for me and hire a firm to do this for me versus just go to AI and get it done?
Our understanding so far is that the products that you can get together with the existing technologies are usually quite simple, and we operate in a much more like bespoke space where we create custom tailored solutions for very specific and novel journeys and concepts. And as such, I would even say this is something that we're digging into, is to see how do we use these tools to our benefit. And they're not quite there yet to build scalable performance systems. Right? So the products that we often launch for our startup customers, our business customers, are such that, we'll get a team together, we'll design, the perfect experience through research and iteration. And a typical build for us might be somewhere between 4 and 8 months.
Got
This is not something where you engineer a prompt and get that printed out.
got it.
Not yet.
Well, I think there's so many things that go on behind the scenes. The more I get to know you and the more I hear you talk about, what you do and how you do it and whatnot, the more I realize how many layers there are that actually go into creating a great product. And but then the question is it a good brand? And
Mhm.
if it's a good brand, how do you measure good? But then there's another way that you measure good where it's, am I attracting the right type of buyer? So then what would it take to create the right type of buyer? What is the impression that I want people to have when they visit my brand and my website? How has this
Mhm.
impacted conversions and to some extent retention? So when you look at like a 4 to 8 month build or whatnot, there's got to be a lot of different like research and planning that must go into place before you even start coding to begin with anyway, right?
That's right. I guess the breading example is an interesting one where we see a lot of the Gen AI tools being really useful for brainstorming and kind of getting ideas around there. What we do, I think, from our perspective, as if you imagine a 6 month roadmap with Goji, we'll work through a strategy sprint by which we will really try and decide, first of all, for a given business, like what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, right?
Yeah.
What is the general vision? Like, why is this effort, right? It's hard to build good products. Why is this effort even worthwhile to begin with? And once we've formulated a strategy of how we will be successful, a theory of victory, so to speak, we like to also consider a theory of failure, right? It's also important to think why it won't work, right? And kind of be vigilant around that. We then will go through pretty methodically a series of research and design iterations to craft the the experience. We usually will get that in front of the end customers and try and suss out product market fit, try to suss out that the solutions we create are intuitive and create the right relationship with our target audience. And once we've gathered that data, we'll actually go forward with the build, right? So it's a little bit similar, I think, in a way to building a house where you have maybe an initial vision, you bring in the architect, you draw up the plans. We make plans that are incredibly meticulous. And at that point, you actually bring in the folks to to lay down the foundation and build on top of it. And so I would say that the planning and kind of thoughtfulness that goes into it is what really helps us set ourselves up for success. There are objective measures of whether a code base is going to be performant, whether it's going to be scalable, whether other engineers could come in and work on it and improve it over time. And our goal is really to build products with the assumption that they're going to be successful, right? And for that typically means for our startup clients, they'll go and raise an A round, right? Put a bunch of gas in the tank and continue fueling and growing the platform for there. For our business clients, it means the platform is going to get stress tested by kind of a large volume of transactions or whatever it is that they're using it to get a lift there. And it's not enough to throw together some sort of coded prototype just to see how it does. We believe that if you get the work from us, it needs to be built well and it needs to be a solid foundation for you to actually pursue the vision and the business outcomes after which we are going.
Now, is this the way everybody goes ahead and builds like digital products, or is this process that's something that's a little bit more unique to the work that you do?
I think there are software development or product development best practices that strong teams will follow, right? And we try to not just follow these, but also improve upon them over time. And
Yeah.
we are constantly revitalizing and updating our methodology. I like to say to our team that we're always a work in progress. And so
Yeah.
we really embody that. And you've heard me say that in the past, I think, right? So
Yeah.
we're really always trying to push the boundaries forward, become more efficient, more creative, and serve our partners better. I would say that there are what I think is unique to us is really just how much we have internalized that we are not really here to build apps, although that is what we do. Like we are here to help our partners pursue business outcomes and get after their vision, right? So we are here to move the needle on growing revenue, on scaling growth. And our methodology, which encompasses the digital product development lifecycle, that's just our toolbox by which we get
Yeah.
there. We believe that building the experience is actually not the main thing. It's not a question of what we can do, it's a question of what we should do. And kind
Mm,
of narrowing that and understanding that together to create a focus between our teams and creating a strategic alignment between our teams so that everybody's rowing in the same direction is
got it.
really the key to our success.
Well, that's critical. I think, what you just said is essential for people to understand is a mistake that small business owners often make is they define themselves by what it is that they actually do. They define themselves by what it is that they do. But ultimately, the more sophisticated CEO and founder will define themselves by the results that they actually provide others. Because ultimately, we're in the business for the sole purpose of delivering a result. We get paid in direct proportion to the value that we put out there for others. So when you say, I help them scale, what does that mean? Like, how do you actually help somebody scale? Like, how does an app itself help someone scale?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So we'll work with startup founders to help them get to market and then launch on their roadmap and also ultimately get to the next raise. We'll work with small and medium businesses or sometimes large, even public companies to launch new initiatives that'll help them roll out a new product onto the market to grow their customer base, for example, or create a system that will that'll facilitate internal efficiencies that might reduce overhead. In every one of these kind of cases, what we do is we try to understand, first of all, where are the problems? What are the problems that we're solving for with the new company we're launching? What are the problems that a business is currently facing with existing facilities that we have? And so, what we try to do is really audit where the pain points are, where the bottlenecks are, and what will prevent further growth. And we will analyze these to we really absorb some of that domain expertise. There to help them advise, figure out that path forward and build systems that are really tailored for helping them create that change. We're here to help with training. We're here to help with adoption. We're here to help with iteration because we don't always get it right the first time, right? And so it's really through these partnerships that we're able to help our partners scale in the direction that it makes sense to them, right? Sometimes the goal of a startup is to find product market fit, right? And we will develop an apparatus for experimentation from an existing prototype to help them suss out where it is that we want to take the product. Okay. Other times, their entire goal is to raise money. So we
Mm,
wouldn't spend a lot of time building things that we don't think are really contributing to that goal. We are extremely focused on what we sometimes call seeing the next card, right? Like, what's the next step that you actually need to get to? And let's not worry about all the fluff, right? And this is why we see, I think, a lot of ventures fail, is because somebody who is like deep in either the leader of business or a COO, someone who's really deep in the problems will devise a solution by themselves. We believe our partners find that incredibly valuable.
let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about you as a CEO and as a business owner, right? So agency space is a tough space, right? So what type of advice would you give our listeners right now that are saying, "Man, dude, show me the light. Take me down that path. What's the things that you learned? What do you wish you learned earlier?" Talk to the CEOs here who are trying to figure out, how to get to that next level.
I like to tell this story. When we started Goji, it was me and one of my best friends from college, and it was just the two of us. We were both software engineers by trade, and we were, we set up shop in a co-working space. we immediately got a project that we got to work on. I think it was like 20 grand or something like that. We built a system that helped shop around money transfer, like for money transfers, right?
Yeah.
And we were so excited. We sat down, did some design work, built out the product, tested it, shipped it. It took a couple months. We were like, great, client was happy, got paid. They were like, oh man, what do we do now? Right. So we got the business, we did the work. Okay, what now? So I think it obviously the more you do, like, the bigger that the more you kind of say yes to different opportunities that come your way. That some of the things that we were asked to do were they're pretty scary. Right. Some of the things we signed up to do, we did not know were actually going right. And so last year we built a platform that it's an Internet of Things like apparatus. It's a
Yep.
device that sits in front of ski jumps on slopes,
Wow.
measures your speed using a lidar, a laser-based radar, and
Wow.
you know whether they're moving at a safe speed towards the jump. If you come too fast, you will miss the landing zone and you can get hurt. And if you come too slow, you might not clear the jump, which is actually more dangerous. So we have not built something like that before, and there isn't anything like that, right? And so we will take on a degree of technical risk, and we'll say, all right, like we'll go in there, we'll figure it out, we'll write custom algorithms. In this particular case, our CTO ended up writing an algorithm that will take a cloud of points and teach the radar to see, right? Like, how do you know that a skier is coming towards you? So, all that is to say that you say yes to things that are uncomfortable.
Yep.
But I would say that the biggest thing, doesn't matter how big it is, and it's like a lot of peaks and valleys, it's an emotional roller coaster. And at some point, you get to like, there's like the lowest point, right, in the graph. It's like this major dip, and they call that the trough of sorrow,
Yep.
right? And I would like, I think I'm not too ashamed to say that I spend probably a week every quarter in that trough. Like there's something that can happen that, really makes you feel, it makes you question like what you're doing and are you doing the right thing? And I think a lot of people just don't survive that. A lot of people quit at that point.
Yeah.
And it's just waiting that out, right? And being, persevering through that bet for a long time that ultimately helps you get to where it is that you need to be to achieve the learnings that you need to continue growing and to help you continue to grow, right? So
Well,
that's kind of what I would say is the biggest thing is just don't give up.
I used to design algorithms and run money in the stock market. So I had my own proprietary stock trading firm and we ran millions of dollars in the markets and it was all based on algorithms. I don't know if you knew that about me, but it's a little fun fact. But one of the things that I learned is that, you know, right before stock hits a new high, it hits a period of resistance, right? So it reaches challenge. And so
Mm,
resistance means when basically you have a problem that you have created for yourself, right? You want to launch a new product, you want to launch a new marketing initiative, you want to make a new key hire, you want to do whatever. Like those are some resistance points. And as long as you can push through that, it takes a lot of energy, momentum, and effort. You get through that and you get to a new high. The opposite of resistance is support. And support is when you start to come down and you get this area of support. And that's when you really have to, you know, bring in as much positive momentum as you can, really stay focused in on what is it going to take to bring in the next sale? What is it going to take to overcome this constraint, this challenge? And it requires a lot, like you said, of persistence and dedication. Because what happens is once you give up, you fall under that support and it's like a falling knife. It continues to drop down. And it's the moment you begin to feel that upward momentum that there's a sigh of relief. And so
no,
when we start to experience these boards in some crazy cockamamie type of way, now conditioned ourselves to start feeling grateful. And we're like, this is the best thing that could happen to us right now because we're about to experience explosive growth. And inevitably, when we look at that and we go, why is this the best thing? Where are the opportunities? Where are the constraints that we have to solve? What are the problems that we have to overcome? Inevitably, every single time it dips down, boom, it brings us to a new level of height, a new level of height, a new level of height. So, yeah, it's not always straight, but the dips serve to make us better as long
for
as you're
sure.
willing to see it in the way that it's intended to be seen, which is a way to make you better.
Yep. 100%. It's definitely right. One more call, one more email, like all that stuff is true, trudging along. But I think what I've found helpful is sometimes, you know, there will be tough moments, there'll be challenges, and just kind of just like sitting with it and
Yep.
feeling it and waiting is also okay, right? Like sometimes I think when we're impacted, when we're feeling like everything is just a lot, like we're not sure where to go. It inspires, it like motivates action, and sometimes actually not doing anything with that and just kind of sort of breathing through it, right? And this could take some time, right? It could take some days or even some weeks, right, to have a tough period. Having that kind of, I guess, gumption to just kind of like sit there and be with it and say it's okay that it feels like this. It's not going to stay like this.
Yep.
Is useful, and you don't always have to act your way out of that. You can also just be there, feel it, and it'll also pass. And inevitably, maybe through your action, but also sometimes stuff just like presents it to you. And actually, this is kind of a funny story, but like so after we wrapped up that project, right? This is the first thing we ever did. We were like, holy crap, like what are we gonna do now? Right? Because we're both engineers, right? So we don't know where to get the business, right? It's just an interesting thing to reflect on. It was one of the founders of that stuff that we launched this company for was like, hey, I'm actually a consultant for the WO and I wrote this RFP and I think you guys will be perfect to take that on. Right.
Wow.
So it just, that week of like not knowing what are we going to do, right? Some things will just materialize, and staying in the game, right, just means being there to like collect those opportunities as they come. And I would encourage folks that are like earlier in the journey and maybe look toward to folks who have been there longer than us to say, just by virtue of doing stuff and having your work be out there, you become more powerful, right? You have more credentials, you have more of a track record, right? Such
Yep.
that now at Goji, we can say, hey, we've been around for 10 years. It makes for a much easier yes for our partners, right? For new partners to come on board. And so don't necessarily be too choosy at the start, right? Go after things that are right for you, do things that you're not sure are going to work, and kind of start bulking up. It really works, and it really helps.
Awesome. And, as much as I'm always a big fan of, consistently leaning in over and over and over again and always doing something. And for me, resting and sitting with it is probably an extremely hard thing because look at me, I can't even sit while we're having our podcast, right? I'm walking on the treadmill, you know, but there is a lot of benefit with what you said for two reasons. Number one, recharging the batteries, right? So sometimes you just have to sit to recharge those batteries. Sometimes you have to sit to get clarity, especially if there's a lot going on. Being able to filter things out and compartmentalize and get clarity over where you want, what you want to go, and what your next steps are going to be. And there's definitely some importance there. Look, I know we're pushing up against the clock. I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time here. We've talked a lot about a lot of things. In the beginning, we really leaned in heavy on what it meant to live in a digital world and how you've got AI experiences that may be focusing and solving on surface level type stuff, and the difference between that and then what it would take to actually peel back the onion and go deeper and deeper and deeper to create a digital experience that is much more than just something you're going to see on the surface, something that inspires action, scale, and all that other fun stuff. We talked about sort of, how to build good digital products. We touched upon how digital products can help companies scale and solve and reach certain goals. And then we flipped the script and brought you in as the CEO with some real honest and quite vulnerable communication. I think what's remarkable about you, David, is that you don't feel the need to put on the mask that a lot of CEOs have to put on, where it's like, I'm infallible and I don't make any mistakes. And, I'm so great, is what a lot of CEOs tend to think they have to do and present themselves, where they can't present themselves as being as somebody who, might struggle or make mistakes or not everything's perfect all the time. That actually takes a lot of courage and strength and actually further defines you as a more seasoned individual. because it's usually the more seasoned individuals that understands that, they don't have to prove to be somebody that they're not, because they've already reached a certain level of success. The track record speaks for itself. And that's definitely the case with you guys, especially after winning all those damn awards that you have. So people want to learn more about you and the work that you do. Where do we send them?
Send them over to LinkedIn. Always happy to get in touch with anyone there. Please don't hesitate to reach out. It's a good way to reach me. And I maybe I'll say just one other thing about just sort of keeping it real. I think for a lot of organizational leaders, like it can be a bit lonely because you're there and a lot of the responsibilities on you. And I think something that I learned years ago that made me more open about some of the challenges and kind of being outwardly spoken about them is that when you're the CEO of a company, like it's a lot of it's on you and it feels like you are alone, but really you're not alone. There's a bunch of other business leaders out there that are experiencing the exact same problems. And it feels like something that is worth sharing to the extent that it makes other folks know that they're not alone.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate that. So check out David Barlev over on LinkedIn. And there's Goji Labs, Goji labs.com. Check them out over there. And then as a reminder for everybody listening that wants to take their business beyond some figures, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is Charles Godet with my buddy David Barlev, and I will see you in another episode.